Things that makes WorkSpan really stand out is at the core of what it does is it allows the network of partners to come into the platform. That was a critical design principle from day one. Well, I think the very first thing they need to do is just begin to believe that they belong there. I think one of the key things that a lot of people in the alliances space, because it's such a cross-functional supportive role, they've often thought of themselves in a support role versus a leadership role. So the first thing that I think is important is they got to think of themselves that they belong, that they should be in the C-suite, and they do. I mean, when you really think about this role, there couldn't be a role that's more important to an organization. They drive growth, they drive innovation, they help orchestrate all the moving parts inside of an organization. It drives top-line revenue, it drives operational efficiency, and most importantly, in many cases, it drives competitive advantage. So I can't imagine anything that's more important than a chief ecosystem officer in a company, but what it's going to take is the people in these roles to recognize that they're not a sacrificial lamb and that they, again, are a leader. And I think too often people don't recognize that they are a leader. So if you think back to the history of the role, I mean, often there was a joke about alliance people were the salespeople that couldn't sell. That's you know, we gotta nip that in the bud. We got to get real specific about the value that we create. And again, in this world where we're moving into transient advantage, we're moving into a world where it's all about the age of the customer, and we're operating in a world of ecosystems. There's never been a better time for the people in the leadership role to be in that C-suite. And I just think it's ours for the taking. The bottom line is, but not a lot of people have that level of confidence and believe that they really should be there. So I think it's going to require a new crop of leaders. I think what you're going to see is a lot of the alliance professionals of the past not make it, because honestly, I don't know if they really understood it. I think you're going to see people in other functions who are going to recognize how significant this is and want to play that role. So you'll see that come out. And then I think when you start looking at the both millennials as well as women in the workforce, I think they are the type of people that will really understand this as we go forward. You know, it's funny, you know, the question may seem very, very complex, but actually I think the answer is very, very simple. If you design and build your entire partnership strategy around the customer, and you obsess your business around the customer, if we really think about ultimately why do we exist as a business? We exist as a business to create and deliver and capture value for the customer. So I think the very first thing is to really begin by starting there. But if you go back to Socrates, which said, know thyself, I think the second part of the answer to that question is you really have to understand who you are as a business, what are your core competencies, what are your core capabilities, and then when you begin to look at the market and the customers that you want to serve, you really have to make these incredibly tough, what I call build, buy, partner decisions at the most strategic level of an organization. You really have to ask yourself, when I look across the value, in the old days we would say the value chain. You know, today I would describe it more as a value network, but if I look at the demand side and the supply side of a company, you have to really look at those build, buy, partner decisions, understand what is core, and really ask yourself, based on what we're trying to do, what are the most important partnerships that we need to have as a business to ultimately, again, to create and deliver, capture value for our clients, and how do we deliver value to our customers? So it begins really, what I would say, you have to have a holistic view. You really have to understand your business, and you got to begin with context. And based on understanding that context, you can then begin to understand where partnerships fit in to where we are today to where the business is trying to go in the future. And you're constantly analyzing that inside of your organization. And because we're operating in an ecosystem, it's really important that we're looking at all the different partner types, but today I would describe them as partner business models to understand who you need to partner with. So if we look at high tech as an example, the hyperscaler didn't even exist 7-10 years ago, right? We wouldn't even thought about them. The systems providers played such a huge role in the ecosystem. Arguably, in many cases, we'll argue they're not as important as they once were. So what you're seeing is a change of who has the value in the value network, or who has the value in the value chain. And it's very important as a business that you look at who are the right partners that I need to support our business objectives. I'll give an example. We did a project with Intel last year where we were asked the exact same question. At Alliancesphere, we have a model that we call the 70-20-10 model. What that basically means on a 3-year strategy is we tend to look at what are the core things we need to do, what are the incremental things we need to do, and what the breakthrough things we need to do. That's the 70-20-10. In the Intel project, what we did was we came up with something that was 50-20-10-20. 50-20-10-20. So 50% of the partnership strategies, think about this as like you have $100 and you can only allocate a certain amount of money toward the partnerships. 50% of the partnership money was going against their big bets, okay, the big partners that you knew. 20% of the partnerships were the ones that were kind of the up and coming. They were not necessarily the big bets, but they were really important, but 20% of the investment was going there. But the interesting part was 20% of where Intel wants to put their money this year is in what they call disruptors. This is a group of partnerships that are going to take Intel to where they need to go tomorrow. So what does that mean? That means in AI, in machine learning, in IoT, all the areas of where it's going. So it's putting 20% of their investment in the disruptors, and then 10% is being invested in, kind of keeping the lights on. That's a radically different approach to a partner strategy and how you manage your portfolio. Because I think what we've done in the past is we've had this classic pyramid model where we go, we got the platinum, gold, silver. Those days are over. That is dead. And I think that we're starting to see what we call at Alliancesphere the diamond model, where essentially you still have your kind of your tier 1s and 2s, but you cannot forget that there's these new emerging partners that could be the next diamonds for your business, and you really have to have a balanced approach for how you do it. There's a lot we can talk about just as it relates. I mean, that's a big part of what we do as a business, is really look at how to examine that ecosystem. One other key point that I would just say that's different today about ecosystems is the word ecosystem has been around forever. It's not like that's new. What's really new today is that we're going to market through and with ecosystems. That is radically different. So the idea of one-to-one partnering, that's been around. People are talking about multi-partnering, which could be a one-to-few, a one-to-many, or through an entire ecosystem. And so what really is exciting is when you start thinking about the potential of what's happening around IoT. There is no possible way that businesses can even realize the potential without an ecosystem. And again, one of the key things that makes WorkSpan really stand out is at the core of what it does is it allows the network of partners to come into the platform. That was a critical design principle from day one that really is going to allow WorkSpan to be the underlying platform to support this next level of partnering and strategy around the ecosystem. Alliancesphere has been in the business for 17 years. If you had known me 17 years ago, you would have known that I was so anxious to go start this company. I literally thought in 2002 that if I didn't hang my shingle and start a company around alliances and an ecosystem, I was going to miss the opportunity of a lifetime. I saw what was happening. I knew that businesses were evolving. What's interesting about all of this, if you kind of look at this, from technology over the last 40 years. What's really interesting, if you look at wave one of the internet, if you sort of take that era of time from, let's say, 98 to 2002, okay? We were talking about ecosystems. We were talking about communities. We were talking about a lot of this stuff. But with the bubble bursting, there were a lot of people at that point in time that loved to kind of stick it in your nose and say, see, this internet thing's not going to be that great. But then the next wave was social. And, quite frankly, there were a lot of people who made a ton of money around the whole social network. But it was more of a consumer play. And, and that was great. And you started seeing the network effect come into play, but it was more on the consumer side. Then the next wave was this whole area around big data and IoT. And I think it's really in that era, and the cloud, quite frankly, cloud and mobile and all, cloud and mobile and data, where all of a sudden it just became so obvious that the next wave of what's going to be needed to really help businesses survive was operating in a two-sided market. You hear about the network effect, you hear about all kinds of things, but it was all built around ecosystems. And I would actually say, if there was one phrase that has really helped us for the ecosystem cloud, believe it or not, is digital transformation. All of this led to what's happened. And I would just say for us, and I'll answer your question, but for us, I always say the market has now come to us versus we were going to the market. It seemed obvious to me, but it's one thing to be a pioneer, and it's fun to have to kind of create the demand. It's awfully nice being on the other side now where the demand is coming to us. And I really give WorkSpan credit for being that software pioneer to really see that trend that was happening and ultimately create this platform. So why is it happening today? Because it's a no-brainer. I mean, to be honest with you, it's one of those things that is just, no shit. I mean, when you really think about it, but because everybody's been operating in silos, so if you think about what your original question was, HR, finance, everybody's been operating in silos, right? When I look at this, it's all about, if you ask people, what does it take to drive digital transformation, and read anything from Gartner, Forrester, BCG, McKinsey, The Economist, they'll say it's about cross-functional team integration. Cross-functional team integration. That's what an alliance person has been doing their whole career. They've had to cross-functionally align the functions, both internally and externally. And so when you think about that, no one's really understood the Herculean effort that these alliance professionals have been doing over the years. I would say another thing was, if you look at AJ Lafley, who is the ex-CEO of Procter & Gamble, who created this program, Connect and Develop, he made a major statement around collaborative innovation that said, the innovation, 50% of all innovation is going to come from outside the four walls of our company, okay? That was heresy to the inside of P&G, who had a not invented here syndrome. So what you're beginning to see in the market is all the things that we know, the wisdom of the crowd, the network effect, we can't go alone, we have to work with partnerships, is just saying that we need a platform that supports it. So the reality is, what's happening today is that each one of the professions that are out there, from sales to marketing to product to services, have got to make alliances and ecosystems work to help support their objectives. And for that reason, the ecosystem cloud is going to become the most important enterprise app that's going to be required to monetize and take full advantage of where the market's going in the 21st century.